The jungle was quiet. Too quiet. Not the stillness of calm, but the oppressive silence of something holding its breath. The crew stood in a tight circle around the altar, their eyes flickering between me and the chest. No one spoke, but I could feel their unease like the weight of the air pressing down on us. "Captain," Briggs said at last, his voice low. "Whatever's in that chest, are we sure it's worth it?" I looked at him, then at the others. "Worth it? Nothing worth having comes easy, lads. This chest didn't find its way to the heart of this cursed isle to be left untouched. Whatever lies inside, we'll face it together." The words hung heavy, but I could see the spark of courage light in their eyes. Good. Courage was all that stood between us and death. I stepped forward, placing my hook on the chest's lid. The metal was cold, colder than the grave. Slowly, I lifted it. The chest opened with a groan, as though reluctant to reveal its secrets. Inside was no simple pile of gold or jewels, but a strange, shifting light. A mist that swirled and pulsed with an otherworldly glow. It was beautiful and terrible, like staring into the eye of a storm. What is it?" Briggs asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer immediately. I couldn't. The light seemed alive, reaching out toward me, pulling me closer. In its depths I saw things. Visions of the sea, vast and endless, but also dark and cruel. Ships sinking, men drowning, treasures lost forever. And then I saw myself, standing at the helm of the Sea Pearl, but not as I was, something more. "It's power," I said at last. "Not gold, not jewels, power beyond anything man was meant to wield." The crew murmured among themselves, their fear battling with their greed. "Power for what?" Briggs asked, his brow furrowed. "To command the sea," I said, turning to face them. "To bend it to our will, to claim its treasures, to become legends. But power doesn't come without a price." As I stared into the chest, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. They weren't just voices now, they were memories. Lives lived and lost. Men who had claimed this power before, and paid dearly for it. The ground beneath us trembled, and the jungle seemed to come alive. The twisted trees groaned and shifted, their branches reaching toward us like claws. The altar began to pulse with the same eerie light as the chest, and the air grew thick with the weight of something ancient and angry. "The gods are watching," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos around us. "They won't let us take this lightly." The crew looked to me, their faces pale. "What do we do, Captain?" Briggs asked. I closed the chest with a sharp snap, the light vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The jungle fell silent once more, but the air still felt charged, as if the island itself was waiting for my next move. "We take it," I said firmly, "but not all of it. The sea is a jealous mistress and will not tempt her wrath by stealing what isn't ours." The decision was easier said than done. We worked quickly, transferring some of the treasure, coins, artifacts, and shards of the strange glowing mist into sacks. Each piece felt heavier than it should have, as though it carried the weight of the curse with it. As we worked, the whispers grew louder again, now joined by distant screams. The jungle closed in around us, the trees twisting and writhing like they were alive. Then came the first scream. Fergus, or what was left of him, stumbled out of the shadows, his face twisted in terror. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes, they glowed with the same light as the chest. He collapsed at my feet, clutching my coat with hands that felt more like ice than flesh. "Leave it," he rasped, his voice barely human. "Leave it, or you'll never leave here alive." The crew froze, their eyes wide with fear. "Move," I barked. "We take what we can carry and get back to the ship." Now! The jungle didn't make it easy. As we made our way back to the boats, the ground shifted beneath our feet, the trees clawed at us, and the whispers grew deafening. Some of the men broke, running blindly into the darkness, their screams fading quickly into silence. But we pressed on. The Sea Pearl sails a faint beacon through the cursed fog. When we reached the shore, the boats were waiting, but the tide had turned, the water churning violently. We loaded the treasure aboard as quickly as we could, but the island wasn't done with us yet. A great shadow rose from the water, massive, writhing tentacles breaking the surface. The Kraken had returned. It didn't attack immediately, just circled the boats, its glowing eyes fixed on me. It was as if it was waiting for something, testing my resolve. "Back to the ship," I ordered, keeping my voice steady despite the terror clawing at my chest. "Row like your lives depend on it, because they do." We reached the Sea Pearl just as the Kraken began its assault. Its massive tentacles wrapped around the hull, shaking the ship violently. The crew fought back with cannons and blades, but it was clear we were outmatched. I climbed to the helm, gripping the wheel tightly. "Hold steady," I shouted. "The sea may be strong, but we are stronger. The Pearl is our home, and we'll not let her fall." With a surge of defiance, I turned the ship directly toward the Kraken, using its momentum against it. The tentacles loosened just enough for us to escape, the beast letting out a deafening roar as we sailed free of the cursed waters. As the fog lifted and the cursed island faded into the distance, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. But I knew better than to celebrate. We had taken the treasure, yes, but the price was yet to be paid. The whisper still lingered, faint but unmistakable, and the glowing mist from the chest seemed to pulse faintly within the sacks. I stood at the helm, staring out at the horizon. "This isn't over," I muttered to myself. "The sea doesn't give without taking, and whatever debt we've incurred, it will come due." Turning to the crew, I raised my voice. "We've survived the black tide, but the legend is only beginning. The gods may curse us, but we are sailors of the Sea Pearl, and no force in this world or the next will stop us." The men cheered, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. They knew as well as I did. Our victory was only temporary. And so we sailed on, the treasure in our hold and the curse on our backs. The legend of Captain Edward the Kraken Morrigan and the Sea Pearl was far from over.